The morning sun cast long shadows across Terminal B at Chicago O'Hare Airport. David checked his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. Flight 447 to Atlanta would begin boarding soon, and he couldn't contain his excitement. After months of saving and planning, he and his wife Maya were finally taking their dream anniversary trip. "Can you believe we're actually doing this?" Maya whispered, adjusting her navy blue dress and checking their boarding passes one more time. The first-class tickets had cost them a small fortune, but David had insisted they deserved to celebrate their 5 years of marriage in style. David smiled and squeezed her hand. "You deserve nothing but the best, beautiful. This is our time." They had met in college, both working multiple jobs to pay for their education. David had gone on to build a successful consulting business, while Maya had worked her way up to become a senior attorney at a prestigious law firm. They had earned every bit of their success through hard work and determination. The gate agent's voice crackled over the intercom. "We will now begin boarding Flight 447 to Atlanta. First-class passengers and our Platinum members, please approach the gate." David and Maya gathered their carry-on bags and walked toward the boarding line. Other first-class passengers were already queuing up. A mix of business travelers in expensive suits, an elderly couple with designer luggage, and a few people who looked like they might be celebrities or executives. As they handed their boarding passes to the gate agent, the young woman smiled warmly. "Have a wonderful flight, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. Congratulations on your anniversary." Maya had mentioned their celebration when booking the tickets, hoping for maybe an extra bag of peanuts or a kind word. The gesture touched her heart. Walking down the jet bridge, David felt a surge of pride. 5 years ago, they could barely afford to fly economy. Now here they were, about to experience their first flight in first class. He had researched everything about the experience: the wider seats, the better food, the complimentary drinks, the extra legroom. The flight attendant at the aircraft door greeted them with a professional smile. "Welcome aboard Flight 447. First class is to your right." David and Maya found their seats, 2A and 2B, right by the window. The leather seats were bigger than they had imagined, with plenty of space to stretch out. David immediately started exploring all the amenities. There was a small pillow, a blanket, and even a little amenity kit with socks and an eye mask. "This is incredible," Maya whispered, running her hand along the armrest. She pulled out her phone to take a picture of their seats, wanting to remember every detail of this special moment. As they settled in, David noticed the flight attendant working in their section. Her name tag read Jennifer, and she appeared to be in her early 40s with blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun. She was helping other passengers store their luggage and offering welcome drinks. Jennifer approached the elderly couple across the aisle first. "Good morning. Can I offer you some champagne or orange juice while we prepare for departure?" The older gentleman requested champagne, and his wife asked for coffee. Jennifer's smile was bright and accommodating. "Of course, I'll have that right out for you." She then moved to the businessman in the seat behind them. Same warm greeting, same genuine smile. He ordered a mimosa, and Jennifer assured him it would be ready in just a moment. When Jennifer reached the row in front of David and Maya, her demeanor remained pleasant. The two passengers there, a middle-aged woman and her teenage daughter, both requested sparkling water. Jennifer nodded and jotted down their requests on her notepad. David and Maya waited expectantly for their turn. They had already decided they would order champagne to toast their anniversary, even though it was only 10 in the morning. This was their special day, and they wanted to make the most of every moment. But Jennifer seemed to be taking her time. She was now helping a passenger several rows ahead store a large bag in the overhead compartment. David and Maya exchanged glances but remained patient. First-class service was supposed to be more personal, so maybe she was just being thorough. With each passenger, another flight attendant, a younger man named Robert, was working the back section of first class. He was efficiently taking drink orders and chatting pleasantly with passengers. David noticed that Robert seemed to be covering more ground than Jennifer, but he didn't think much of it. Jennifer finally returned to their section, but instead of approaching David and Maya, she stopped at the row behind them. "Good morning. What can I get started for you today? David cleared his throat softly and turned around with a friendly smile. Excuse me, we're actually next, he said politely, gesturing to himself and Maya. Jennifer's eyes flicked over to them, briefly, then back to the passengers behind them. I'll be right with you, she said in a tone that was noticeably different from how she had spoken to the other passengers. There was no warmth, no genuine smile. Maya felt a small knot form in her stomach, but she told herself she was being overly sensitive. Maybe Jennifer was just having a long day, or maybe she was new to first class and still learning the ropes. 10 more minutes passed. Jennifer had now served drinks to every other passenger in the section except David and Maya. She had even come back to check on some passengers, asking if they needed anything else or if their drinks were satisfactory. David's patience was wearing thin, but he didn't want to cause a scene on their anniversary trip. He caught Jennifer's eye as she walked, past their row again. Excuse me, could we please get some service? We've been waiting quite a while. Jennifer stopped and looked at them with an expression that David couldn't quite read. There was something in her eyes, a coldness that hadn't been there when she spoke to the other passengers. What would you like? She asked, her tone flat and professional, but lacking any of the warmth she had shown everyone else. We'd like to order some champagne, please, Maya said with a smile, trying to lighten the mood. We're celebrating our anniversary. Jennifer's eyes narrowed slightly. I'll need to see your boarding passes. David and Maya looked at each other in confusion. None of the other passengers had been asked for their boarding passes when ordering drinks. Is there a problem? David asked. I just need to verify your seat assignments, Jennifer replied curtly. Maya reached into her purse and pulled out their boarding passes, handing them to Jennifer. The passes clearly showed seats 2A and 2B first class with their names printed at the top. Jennifer studied the passes for much longer than necessary, turning them over and examining them closely. Finally, she handed them back with a skeptical look. I'll check on the champagne, she said, but her tone suggested she wasn't in any hurry to fulfill their request. As Jennifer walked away, David and Maya sat in uncomfortable silence. Other passengers around them were enjoying their drinks and chatting happily. The elderly couple across the aisle was already on their second round of champagne. The businessman behind them was working on his laptop while sipping his mimosa. What just happened? Maya whispered to David. David shook his head, trying to process what they had just experienced. He had encountered discrimination before in his life, but never so blatantly, and certainly not in first class on what was supposed to be one of the best days of their year. Maybe she's just having a bad day, David said quietly, though he didn't really believe it himself. 20 minutes had passed since takeoff preparations began, and they still hadn't received their drinks. David watched as Jennifer continued to serve other passengers, bringing seconds and even thirds to some, while completely ignoring their section of the cabin. The pilot's voice came over the intercom, announcing that they would be taking off shortly and asking flight attendants to prepare the cabin. David realized that they might not get their anniversary champagne before takeoff after all. As he looked around at the other passengers enjoying their first-class experience, David couldn't shake the feeling that their perfect anniversary trip was about to become something very different than what they had planned. The plane was now taxiing toward the runway, and David and Maya still sat without drinks while every other first-class passenger had been served at least twice. Maya tried to focus on the safety demonstration, but she couldn't ignore the growing tension in her chest. Something was definitely wrong with how they were being treated. Jennifer was now making her final safety checks, ensuring all passengers had their seatbelts fastened and tray tables up. When she reached David and Maya's row, she paused and looked down at them with an expression that was far from friendly. I need you both to step into the aisle, Jennifer said firmly, her voice loud enough that passengers around them began to take notice. I'm sorry, what? David asked, confused. They had their seatbelts on and were following all the safety procedures just like everyone else. There's been an issue with your seat assignments. I need you to move, Jennifer continued, her tone becoming more aggressive. Maya felt her heart rate increase. What kind of issue? We have our boarding passes right here. She reached for her purse to pull them out again, Ma'am, I've already seen your passes and there seems to be some confusion about these seats, Jennifer said, speaking louder now. Several passengers were turning to watch the interaction. David stood up slowly, trying to remain calm. There's no confusion. We purchased these seats 3 months. Miss Ego. We have confirmation emails, receipts, everything you could possibly need. Jennifer crossed her arms. Sir, I'm going to need you to lower your voice and cooperate. These seats were supposed to be assigned to our platinum members. We are your customers, Maya said, standing as well. We paid full price for these seats. I can show you the credit card statement on my phone right now. The elderly couple across the aisle was watching with concern. The woman leaned toward her husband and whispered something, clearly uncomfortable with what they were witnessing. Look, Jennifer said, her voice taking on a condescending tone. I understand this might be disappointing, but sometimes the computer makes mistakes. We have 2 excellent seats in economy class that we can move you to. You'll be much more comfortable. There, David felt his face grow hot. More comfortable? We paid for first class because this is our anniversary trip. We're not moving to economy because you think we don't belong here. That's not what I said, Jennifer replied quickly, but her expression betrayed her real feelings. I'm just trying to resolve this situation quietly before it becomes a bigger problem. The businessman sitting behind them had stopped working on his laptop and was openly staring now. He cleared his throat and spoke up. Excuse me, but I was right behind them when they boarded. They definitely have first-class tickets. I saw the gate agent welcome them. Jennifer shot him an annoyed look. Sir, this doesn't concern you. Please, mind your own business. Actually, it does concern me, the businessman replied firmly. I travel on this airline every week and I've never seen passengers treated like this before. Maya pulled out her phone and started scrolling through her emails. Here's our confirmation number, here's the receipt, here's the email from your company confirming our first-class seats. She held the phone toward Jennifer. Jennifer barely glanced at the screen. Ma'am, anyone can fake emails these days. I need you to gather your belongings and follow me to the back of the plane. This is absolutely ridiculous, David said, his voice rising despite his efforts to stay calm. We're not moving anywhere. We have every right to be in these seats. Jennifer's facade of professionalism was starting to crack. Sir, you need to understand that this is my airplane, and I make the decisions about seating. If you continue to be difficult, I'll have to call security. Difficult? Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. We're being difficult because we want to sit in the seats we paid for. The conversation was now drawing attention from passengers throughout the first-class cabin. The teenage girl in the row ahead had turned completely around to watch, and even some economy passengers were craning their necks to see what was happening. Jennifer seemed to realize she had an audience, which only made her more defensive. This situation could have been resolved quietly if you had just cooperated from the beginning. Now you're making a scene and disturbing other passengers. We're making a scene? David asked incredulously. You're the one demanding we move out of our assigned seats for no legitimate reason. The older gentleman across the aisle stood up and approached Jennifer. Miss, I've been flying for over 40 years, and I've never seen anything like this. These folks clearly belong in first class just as much as the rest of us. Jennifer's face was growing red with frustration. Sir, please return to your seat. This is a safety issue now, and I need everyone to sit down. The only safety issue I see is how you're treating these passengers, the man replied calmly but firmly. Maya was frantically searching through her phone for their original booking confirmation when she noticed other passengers were also pulling out their phones. Some were recording the interaction, others were typing furiously, probably posting about what they were witnessing on social media. You cannot record me without my permission, Jennifer snapped at a passenger who was clearly filming. Actually, we're in a public space and this is a matter of public interest, Maya said, her legal training kicking in. These passengers have every right to document what they're seeing. Jennifer was clearly losing control of the situation. She looked around at all the passengers watching her, many of them with disapproving expressions. The young flight attendant, Robert, had also approached and was standing nearby looking very uncomfortable with what he was witnessing. Robert, I need you to call the captain, Jennifer said, trying to regain her authority. We have passengers refusing to follow crew instructions. Robert hesitated. Jennifer, maybe we should just let them stay in their seats. They have valid tickets and we're about to take off. Are you questioning my judgment? Jennifer turned on her colleague with surprising venom. I'm just saying that maybe there's been a misunderstanding, Robert replied diplomatically. David could see that Jennifer was becoming increasingly agitated. Listen, we don't want any trouble. We just want to enjoy our flight and celebrate our anniversary. We paid for these seats, we have proof we paid for these seats, and we're not causing any problems. Not causing problems? Jennifer's voice was getting shrill now. You've turned this entire cabin into chaos. You're disrupting the flight schedule. You're upsetting other passengers, and you're refusing to follow crew instructions. Maya looked around at the other passengers. Does anyone here feel like we're upsetting them or causing chaos? The businessman behind them spoke up again. The only person causing chaos is the flight attendant. These folks have been nothing but polite and reasonable. Several other passengers nodded in agreement. The elderly woman across the aisle said, Honey, you stay right where you are. You belong in those seats just as much as anyone else. Jennifer was clearly outnumbered, but instead of backing down, she doubled down on her position. Fine, if you won't move voluntarily, I'll have the captain return to the gate and have security remove you. For what? Maya asked. For sitting in the seats we paid for? For refusing to follow crew instructions and causing a disturbance, Jennifer replied. David felt like he was in some kind of alternate reality. The only disturbance here is you demanding we move for no valid reason. Every other passenger can See that? The young passenger who had been recording held up her phone. I got the whole thing. This is definitely going viral. People need to see how this airline treats its customers. Jennifer lunged toward the phone. Give me that device right now. Robert quickly stepped between them. Jennifer, you need to calm down. You can't confiscate a passenger's phone. She's recording me without permission, Jennifer protested. Which is completely legal, Maya said firmly. And considering what's happening here, I'd say it's necessary. Jennifer looked around wildly, realizing that she had completely lost control of the situation. Every passenger in first class was now watching her, most with expressions of disgust or disbelief. Several were typing on their phones, presumably sharing what they were witnessing with the world. The captain's voice came over the intercom. Flight attendants, please prepare for departure. We've been cleared for takeoff. Jennifer grabbed the phone that connected her to the cockpit. Captain, we have a situation in first class. I need you to return to the gate immediately. David and Maya exchanged glances. What had started as their perfect anniversary trip was turning into a nightmare, and it seemed like Jennifer was determined to make it even worse. The plane began to slow down, and David realized with a sinking heart that they were indeed returning to the gate, all because they had dared to sit in the first-class seats they had legitimately purchased. As the aircraft turned around, Maya squeezed David's hand. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. But she couldn't help wondering how this situation had spiraled so completely out of control, and what Jennifer's real motivation was for treating them so differently from every other passenger on the plane. As the plane slowly returned to the gate, an uncomfortable silence filled the first-class cabin. David and Maya remained in their seats, still trying to process what was happening to them. The other passengers were watching Jennifer with a mixture of shock and disgust, while she paced back and forth in the aisle, muttering to herself about difficult passengers and company policies. The elderly gentleman across the aisle, who had introduced himself as Dr. Peterson, leaned over toward David and Maya. In my 42 years of flying, I have never witnessed anything like this. This is completely unacceptable, his wife nodded emphatically. We've been watching this whole thing, and you two have done absolutely nothing wrong. That woman has completely lost her mind. Jennifer overheard them and whirled around. Sir, I'm going to ask you one more time to mind your own business. This situation doesn't concern you. When I see passengers being mistreated for no reason, it absolutely concerns me, Dr. Peterson replied firmly. I'm a retired federal judge, and what I'm witnessing here looks very much like discrimination. Jennifer's face went pale for a moment, but then her expression hardened. Are you threatening me? I'm stating a fact, Dr. Peterson said calmly. And I'm also informing you that I'll be filing a complaint with the airline, the Department of Transportation, and anyone else who will listen. The businessman behind David and Maya, who had been typing furiously on his laptop, looked up. I'm a travel blogger with over 2 million followers. This story is going live in about 10 minutes, complete with photos and video. Jennifer was clearly becoming more agitated by the minute. You people don't understand the authority I have on this aircraft. I can have anyone removed for any reason I see fit. Maya, drawing on her legal experience, spoke up calmly. Actually, that's not true. Federal aviation regulations are very specific about the reasons crew members can remove passengers. Refusing to give up legitimately purchased seats is not one of them. Don't lecture me about regulations, Jennifer snapped. I've been doing this job for 10 years. Then you should know better, said the young woman who had been recording everything. She was a college student named Brittany, traveling home for spring break. My mom is a flight attendant for Delta, and she's always told me that the customer comes first, especially when they haven't done anything wrong. Jennifer turned her anger toward Brittany. Your mother obviously works for an inferior airline. We have standards here. Standards? David finally spoke up, his voice tight with controlled anger. What standards are those exactly? The standard of harassing paying customers? The standard of treating people differently based on how they look? I treat everyone equally, Jennifer protested, but her voice lacked conviction. Really? Maya pulled out her phone and started reading from her notes. You offered champagne to the Petersons within 2 minutes of boarding. You offered mimosas to Mr. Chen behind us within 3 minutes. You offered sparkling water to the mother and daughter in row 1 within 4 minutes. We've been waiting over 30 minutes and haven't been offered so much as a glass of water. Robert, the other flight attendant, had been listening to everything. He cleared his throat nervously. Jennifer, maybe we should just serve everyone and get ready for takeoff. The captain is probably wondering what's taking so long. Stay out of this, Robert, Jennifer hissed. These passengers have been nothing but trouble since they boarded. That's a lie, said Mr. Chen, the businessman. I was sitting right behind them. They were perfectly polite and patient even when you ignored them for the first 20 minutes of the flight. Jennifer was now visibly shaking with rage. Fine. You want to know the truth? These seats were supposed to be for our platinum members, people who actually deserve first-class service, not people who probably used miles or got some kind of discount to sneak their way into first class. The cabin fell completely silent. Even the passengers in economy who had been straining to listen seemed to stop breathing. Jennifer had finally said what everyone suspected she was thinking. David stood up slowly, his face a mask of controlled fury. There it is. You want to know if we deserve to be here? I'm the regional vice president of Johnson Consulting, one of the largest firms in the Midwest. My wife is a partner at Williams & Associates law firm. We paid full price for these seats, over $1,200 each, because we wanted to celebrate our anniversary in style. But apparently you've decided we don't look like we belong in first class. Maya also stood, her voice steady but filled with cold anger. I've handled discrimination cases before, Jennifer. I know exactly what this is, and I know exactly what your airline's liability looks like when this story gets out. Jennifer realized she had gone too far, but instead of backing down, she became even more defensive. You're twisting my words. I never said anything about how you look. You didn't have to, said Dr. Peterson's wife. Your actions spoke louder than words. We've all seen exactly how you treated this couple compared to everyone else. Brittany held up her phone. And now the whole world is going to see it too. This video already has over 1,000 views and it's only been online for 5 minutes. Jennifer made a grab for the phone again, but Robert stepped between them. Jennifer, you need to stop. This is getting completely out of hand. Whose side are you on? Jennifer demanded of her colleague. I'm on the side of treating passengers with respect, Robert replied firmly. Something you seem to have forgotten how to do. The captain's voice came over the intercom again. Flight attendants, please report to the front of the aircraft immediately. Jennifer looked panicked. She had clearly not expected the situation to escalate this far. "Look, let's just all calm down. Maybe we can work something out." "Work what out?" Maya asked coldly. "We're sitting in our assigned seats that we paid for. There's nothing to work out except your apology." "I'm not apologizing for doing my job," Jennifer said stubbornly. Mr. Chen laughed bitterly. "Your job is to serve passengers, not interrogate them and try to kick them off the plane for no reason." Jennifer looked around at all the faces staring at her with disgust and disappointment. Every single passenger in first class was against her. Even some of the economy passengers who had been listening were shaking their heads. "You people don't understand the pressure I'm under," Jennifer said desperately. "Management is always telling us to watch for suspicious behavior, to make sure the right people are in the right seats." "Suspicious behavior?" David asked incredulously. "Like what? Sitting quietly, reading our itinerary and politely asking for champagne? Like trying to use seats you didn't pay for," Jennifer shot back, though she seemed to realize immediately that this argument made no sense given all the evidence they had provided. Dr. Peterson stood up and walked over to Jennifer. "Young lady, I'm going to give you some free advice. You are digging yourself into a hole that you will never get out of. Every word you speak is being recorded and will be used against you and this airline. If you have any sense left, you'll stop talking right now." Jennifer looked at the retired judge with wild eyes. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm trying to help you," Dr. Peterson said sadly. "But I can see you're beyond help." The sound of footsteps in the jetway indicated that someone was boarding the plane. Jennifer looked toward the door with a mixture of hope and terror, clearly hoping that reinforcements were coming to support her position. "Finally," she muttered. "Now we'll see who's right and who's wrong." Maya and David exchanged glances. They had done nothing wrong. They had proof of their legitimate tickets and they had multiple witnesses to Jennifer's outrageous behavior. Whatever happened next, they were confident that the truth would come out. But as they waited to see who was coming aboard the aircraft, David couldn't help but think about how their perfect anniversary trip had turned into a nightmare. All because one flight attendant had decided, for reasons she couldn't or wouldn't articulate, that they didn't belong in first class. The footsteps were getting closer, and Jennifer was straightening her uniform, preparing to tell her version of events to whoever was about to board the plane. But based on the expressions of every passenger around them, David was pretty sure that Jennifer's version wasn't going to match what everyone else had witnessed. As the footsteps reached the aircraft door, the entire first-class cabin held its breath, waiting to see how this confrontation would finally be resolved. Captain Williams stepped through the aircraft door, his gold uniform stripes catching the cabin lights. He was a tall man in his 50s with graying hair and a calm, authoritative presence that immediately commanded attention. Behind him walked a woman in a crisp business suit carrying a tablet and wearing a serious expression. Jennifer rushed toward them, relief flooding her face. "Captain Williams, thank goodness you're here. I've been dealing with an impossible situation. These passengers in 2A and 2B are refusing to follow crew instructions and causing a major disturbance." Captain Williams held up his hand to stop her mid-sentence. "Jennifer, before you say another word, I need you to know that I've been monitoring this entire situation through the cabin communication system." Jennifer's face went white. "You've been monitoring?" "Every word," the captain said grimly. "And I've also been in contact with ground control, who informed me that this incident is already trending on social media. We have a very serious problem here." The woman in the business suit stepped forward. "I'm Patricia Rodriguez, Regional Manager for Customer Relations. I drove here directly from downtown when our social media team alerted me to what was happening on this aircraft." Jennifer looked like she might faint. "I can explain everything. These passengers were being difficult from the moment they boarded." "Stop talking," Captain Williams said firmly. "Just stop." He turned to address the entire first-class cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to personally apologize for what you've witnessed today. This behavior is absolutely not representative of our airline's values or policies." Dr. Peterson stood up. "Captain, I'm Dr. Peterson, retired federal judge. I've been observing this entire incident, and I can tell you that these two passengers," he gestured toward David and Maya, have conducted themselves with remarkable dignity in the face of completely unacceptable treatment. Patricia Rodriguez was taking notes on her tablet. Dr. Peterson, would you be willing to provide a statement about what you witnessed? Absolutely, Dr. Peterson replied, and I believe several other passengers would as well. Brittany, the college student who had been recording, held up her phone. I have the entire thing on video. It's already been viewed over 50,000 times. Patricia's face grew even more serious. 50,000? In how long? About 20 minutes, Brittany replied. And the comments are, well, they're not good for your airline. Captain Williams turned to Robert, the other flight attendant. Robert, I need you to give me an honest account of what happened here. Robert glanced nervously at Jennifer, then straightened his shoulders. Captain, Jennifer has been treating Mr. and Mrs. Johnson differently from every other passenger since the moment they boarded. She ignored them for over 30 minutes, questioned their boarding passes multiple times, demanded they move out of their assigned seats, and made several comments that were inappropriate. Inappropriate how? Patricia asked. Robert took a deep breath. She said they probably didn't deserve to be in first class, that they must have gotten some kind of discount to sneak their way into first class, and that the seats were meant for people who actually deserve first-class service. Jennifer started to protest. I never said, it's all on video, Mr. Chen interrupted, holding up his own phone. I started recording when things got really bad. Everything Robert said is documented. Captain Williams closed his eyes for a moment, as if trying to process the magnitude of the situation. When he opened them, he looked directly at David and Maya. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, I cannot begin to express how sorry I am for what you've experienced today. This is completely unacceptable. David, who had been remarkably calm throughout the entire ordeal, finally spoke. Captain, we just wanted to celebrate our anniversary. We saved for months to afford these seats. We've never been treated like this in our lives. Maya's eyes were filled with tears, but her voice was steady. I'm an attorney, Captain Williams. I specialize in civil rights law. What happened here today wasn't just poor customer service, it was discrimination, plain and simple. Patricia Rodriguez looked up from her tablet with a shocked expression. Did you say you're an attorney specializing in civil rights? That's correct, Maya replied. I'm a partner at Williams & Associates. We handle discrimination cases regularly. Patricia's hands were trembling slightly as she typed. Mr. Johnson, what did you say you do for work? I'm Regional VP at Johnson Consulting, David replied. We handle corporate strategy and crisis management for Fortune 500 companies. The color drained from Jennifer's face as she began to realize the implications of what had just been revealed. Not only had she discriminated against passengers, but she had chosen to target an attorney who specialized in exactly this type of case and a business executive who understood corporate crisis management. Captain Williams looked like he had developed a severe headache. Mrs. Rodriguez, what's our social media situation looking like? Patricia was scrolling through her tablet rapidly. It's bad, Captain, really bad. The hashtag darn airline discrimination is trending nationally. We're getting tagged in thousands of posts. The video has been shared by several celebrity accounts. Brittany spoke up. My roommate texted me. It's on the local news in Atlanta. They're calling it anniversary discrimination and asking people to boycott the airline. Dr. Peterson's wife had been quietly observing everything. Captain, if I may say something. My husband and I have been platinum members with your airline for over 15 years. We've never seen anything like this. If this is how you treat your customers, we'll be taking our business elsewhere. Several other passengers murmured their agreement. Mr. Chen was already on his phone. I'm calling my company's travel department right now. We book over $2 million in flights per year with this airline. Not anymore. Jennifer finally seemed to understand the severity of what she had done. I was just following protocol. We're supposed to verify that passengers belong in their assigned seats. Captain Williams turned to her with an expression of complete disgust. Jennifer, I've been flying for 28 years, and I've never heard of any protocol that involves harassing passengers with valid tickets, demanding they move out of paid seats, or making discriminatory comments about who deserves first-class service. Patricia Rodriguez was still frantically typing on her tablet. The legal department is already involved. Our crisis management team is being activated. The CEO wants a full report within the hour. Maya looked at David, then back at Captain Williams. Captain, at this point we just want to get to Atlanta for our anniversary, but I want you to know that this incident will not be ignored or forgotten. Nor should it be, Captain Williams replied firmly. Mrs. Rodriguez, what immediate actions are we taking? Patricia looked up from her tablet with a grim expression. Corporate has authorized me to take whatever immediate action is necessary to contain this situation. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, the airline would like to offer you a full refund for your tickets, vouchers for future travel, and our sincere apologies. That's a start, David said quietly. But what about making sure this never happens to anyone else? Captain Williams nodded. That's exactly the right question. Jennifer, you need to understand that your actions today haven't just affected one couple. You've potentially damaged this airline's reputation with millions of people. Jennifer was now openly crying. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I was just trying to do my job. Your job is to serve passengers with dignity and respect, Dr. Peterson said firmly. Instead, you chose to humiliate and discriminate against people based on your own prejudices. The cabin fell silent as everyone processed what had happened. What had started as a simple flight to Atlanta had turned into a national news story about discrimination and corporate accountability. Captain Williams looked around at all the passengers who had witnessed the incident. Ladies and gentlemen, I know this has been an extremely unpleasant experience for all of you. The airline will be reaching out to each of you to discuss appropriate compensation for the delays and distress caused by this incident. Patricia Rodriguez was finishing up a phone call with someone at corporate headquarters. When she hung up, she looked at Captain Williams with a serious expression. Sir, I've just spoken with the executive team. They've made a decision about how to proceed. Captain Williams nodded. What's the decision? Patricia looked directly at Jennifer. Effective immediately, Jennifer Patterson is terminated from employment with this airline. Security is on their way to escort her from the aircraft. Jennifer's legs seemed to give out and she sank into the nearest seat. You can't do this. I have 10 years with this company. I have a family. You should have thought about that before. You decided to discriminate against our customers, Patricia replied without sympathy. As the gravity of the situation finally hit Jennifer, the entire first-class cabin watched in stunned silence. In less than an hour, her actions had not only humiliated 2 innocent passengers but had also cost her career and potentially millions of dollars in damage to the airline's reputation. David and Maya sat holding hands, still trying to process everything that had happened. Their anniversary trip had taken an unexpected turn, but at least justice was finally being served. The sound of footsteps echoed through the jetway as 2 airport security officers boarded the aircraft. The entire first-class cabin watched in stunned silence as the reality of Jennifer's termination set in. What had begun as discrimination against an innocent couple celebrating their anniversary had escalated into a career-ending disaster in less than 7 minutes from the moment Captain Williams had stepped onto the plane. Patricia Rodriguez approached David and Maya with a solemn expression. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, on behalf of the entire airline, I want to offer you our most sincere apologies. What happened here today goes against everything our company stands for. Jennifer was still sitting in shock, tears streaming down her face, as the security officers approached her. This isn't fair, she whispered. I've given 10 years of my life to this company. Captain Williams overheard her and turned around. Jennifer, you've had 10 years to learn how to treat passengers with dignity and respect. Instead, you chose to humiliate and discriminate against paying customers on what should have been one of the happiest days of their lives. Dr. Peterson stood up and addressed the captain. Sir, I want you to know that every passenger in this cabin witnessed Jennifer's behavior from start to finish. Her termination is not only justified, it's necessary. The security officers approached Jennifer professionally but firmly. Ma'am, we need you to gather your personal belongings and come with us. Jennifer looked around desperately at the passengers, who had watched her downfall. Please, someone tell them this is all a misunderstanding. I was just doing my job. Mr. Chen, the businessman who had defended David and Maya throughout the ordeal, shook his head. Jennifer, you discriminated against these passengers from the moment they boarded. We all saw it. We all recorded it. There's no misunderstanding here. Brittany, the college student whose video had already gone viral, held up her phone. The video now has over 200,000 views. People are sharing their own stories of discrimination in the comments. You've started a much bigger conversation than you probably intended. As Jennifer was escorted off the aircraft, she turned back one last. Cyrus, I hope you're all happy. You've ruined my life. Maya, who had remained remarkably composed throughout the entire ordeal, finally spoke directly to Jennifer. We didn't ruin your life, Jennifer. Your choices ruined your life. Your decision to treat us differently because of how we look. Your refusal to serve us equally. Your attempts to humiliate us in front of other passengers. Those were all your choices. David added quietly. All we wanted was to celebrate our anniversary and be treated like every other paying customer. You decided we didn't deserve that basic respect. Jennifer had no response. The security officers guided her toward the exit as passengers throughout the cabin watched her leave. The silence was broken only by the sound of phones buzzing with notifications as the story continued to spread across social media. Patricia Rodriguez turned her attention back to David and Maya. The airline would like to upgrade your hotel in Atlanta to the presidential suite at the Ritz-Carlton for your entire stay, provide you with a full refund for your flights, and offer you first-class tickets anywhere in the world for your next anniversary trip. Captain Williams nodded. Additionally, I want to personally ensure that you have the celebration you deserve. I'll be speaking with our Atlanta crew to make sure your return flight is handled with the utmost care and attention. Dr. Peterson's wife reached across the aisle and took Maya's hand. Sweetheart, you handled that with such grace and dignity. You should be proud of how you stood up for yourselves. Robert, the flight attendant who had witnessed everything, approached David and Maya with tears in his eyes. I am so sorry for what you experienced today. Jennifer's behavior was completely wrong and I should have spoken up sooner. Maya smiled at him kindly. Robert, you did speak up when it mattered. Thank you for that. Patricia was still managing the crisis from her tablet. The CEO wants to schedule a personal meeting with both of you to discuss how we can prevent incidents like this in the future. Your expertise in civil rights law and crisis management could be invaluable in helping us improve our policies and training. David and Maya exchanged glances. What had started as the worst flight experience of their lives was turning into an opportunity to create positive change for future passengers. Captain Williams addressed the entire first-class cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for your patience during this extremely unfortunate incident. Your willingness to speak up and defend your fellow passengers demonstrates the best of human nature. Dr. Peterson stood up again. Captain, I want you to know that how you and Mrs. Rodriguez handled this situation has restored some of my faith in your airline. Swift action and accountability are exactly what was needed here. Brittany was still monitoring her phone. The story is now being picked up by major news outlets. CNN, ABC, and NBC have all reached out asking for interviews. Patricia looked concerned. We'll need to coordinate any media requests through our communications team. This is already a massive story and we want to make sure we handle it appropriately. Maya nodded. As an attorney, I understand the importance of managing this properly. We're not looking to destroy your airline. We just want to ensure this never happens to anyone else. Captain Williams prepared to return to the cockpit. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, I give you my personal word that this incident will lead to meaningful changes in our company. We'll be reviewing our training programs, updating our policies, and ensuring that every employee understands that discrimination has no place in our organization. As the captain left, Patricia continued working with David and Maya to address their concerns. We'd like to establish a passenger advocacy program, and we'd be honored if you would consider consulting on its development. The other passengers began to settle back into their seats as the aircraft prepared for departure, nearly 2 hours after the original scheduled takeoff time. But nobody seemed to mind the delay. They had witnessed something important: accountability. Inaction and justice being served swiftly. Mr. Chen was updating his travel blog in real time. "This is actually going to be a positive story for your airline," he told Patricia. "Not the discrimination part, obviously, but how quickly and decisively you handled it once it was brought to your attention." As Flight 447 finally took off for Atlanta, David and Maya sat holding hands, processing everything that had happened. Their anniversary trip had taken an unexpected turn, but they had stood up for themselves with dignity and grace. More importantly, their experience would likely prevent other couples from facing the same discrimination. Dr. Peterson raised his champagne glass toward them. "To David and Maya, for showing us all how to stand up for what's right." The entire first-class cabin raised their glasses in a toast, and for the first time since boarding, David and Maya finally got the champagne they had originally ordered to celebrate their anniversary. As Atlanta came into view through the airplane windows, Maya squeezed David's hand. "Well, this definitely isn't the anniversary story we expected to tell." David smiled. "No, but it's a story about standing up for ourselves and creating change. I think that's pretty appropriate for celebrating another year of our partnership." The plane touched down in Atlanta to find news crews waiting at the gate. The story of Flight 447 had become a national conversation about discrimination, accountability, and the power of passengers to demand better treatment. What had started as Jennifer's 7 minutes of poor judgment had ended her career, but had also sparked meaningful conversations about equality and respect in the airline industry. David and Maya's anniversary trip had become something much larger, a catalyst for positive change that would benefit countless future travelers. As they walked off the plane hand in hand, David and Maya knew that while their anniversary celebration had taken an unexpected turn, they had turned a painful experience into an opportunity to make the world a little bit better, and that seemed like the perfect way to celebrate another year of marriage.